Hey everybody, welcome in to our introductory webinar on KNIME Analytics Platform version 5. My name is Scott Fincher. I'm the data science community manager rather here at KNIME. Happy that you are able to join us today. Before we get into the content, just a little bit of housekeeping I wanted to go over on how to use the platform that we're on here together. If you'd like to chat with others that are also online, you can use the chat tab. Uh, just talk a little bit about what's going on. In fact, if you want to practice using that right now, you can actually post where you're from in the chat. Usually for events like this, we have people joining us from all over the world, and it's always interesting to see where folks are coming from. So maybe post that a little bit there. If you want to ask questions, and we hope you do, use the Q&A tab. So we have several NIMers online to answer your questions in the chat. Excuse me. And they'll also be selecting some of those questions to hold on to so that we can answer them during live Q&A at the very end. So go ahead and use that to your advantage as well. We'll be monitoring that and trying to answer. Beg your pardon. And then I don't have a slide for it, but we also have a polls option here. So I think Cristiano is going to bring up the poll. We're interested in seeing how long you have been using KNIME. Are you brand new? Don't know anything about KNIME? Maybe you've been using KNIME for a year or less, or maybe you're a seasoned pro and have been with us for a really long time. We'd be interested in your responses to that poll. If you can click over there on the poll section and let us know, and then we'll come back to you with the results of that a little bit later in the broadcast here. All right. If something happens on your end, you get disconnected, or you're not having a good experience with the quality, we'd recommend using Chrome or Firefox as your web browser. You can always try refreshing your web browser if something goes a little haywire. If you're on Wi-Fi, you might want to consider using a cabled internet connection if you can. You could also try using private browser mode. Check your cookie settings. At any rate, if you do need to shift around to get a better experience, you can always come back straight to us by clicking on the yellow stage button there that you'll see on the left-hand side in the platform, and we'll still be here and streaming. All right, let me take a minute to introduce today's speakers. I want to bring on Elisabeth Richter, who's a data science publisher here at KNIME, and also Emilio Silvestri, who is a data scientist on the evangelism team. If you guys can come on real quickly, just say hi and maybe mention what you're going to show us today.
Hi everyone, happy to be here today, and I will be giving you a tour around the KNIME Analytics Platform version 5 interface later today.
Cool.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining, and we will see each other later for a live demo to build your first workflow in Analytics Platform version 5.
Okay, excellent. That's going to be great. Before we get into the live demo part, though, and we'll see the guys here in a minute, I wanted to give you a little bit of introduction. So here's what we're going to see. The agenda we basically just lined out for you. Tour through the interface after the intro, building a workflow, and then we'll save some time at the end, of course, for some additional materials to get you started, along with a Q&A. People always ask, can I get a recording of this for later? Can I share it with my team? You will get an email from us afterward that will have a link to this recording, so it will be available. And we will also have a thread on the KNIME forum where we post the slides in case you'd like those. And if you're wanting to use the example workflows, those are always available on the KNIME Community Hub. And in fact, I believe the one that Emilio is going to show you today is one of the first ones you'll see presented to you in the interface. So this one's even easier to access than most. Okay, that's enough housekeeping and stuff. Let me get started with the introduction. I wanted to talk a little bit now to those of you who may be completely new to KNIME, our software and our company, have never had any experience with us. And then after that, we'll jump into the demo and you can see the software in action. So if you don't know anything about KNIME, KNIME software, we offer a complete platform from ideation to production. We have these 4 steps here. We're primarily in this webinar going to be focusing on step 1, which is building out your analysis using our low code, no code interface. That's the free open source KNIME Analytics platform that anybody can download right now. We're going to show you how that works. Now, there's a lot of other functionality that we offer in the software having to do with collaboration on different workflows, deploying and monitor of models, data apps, reports you may make, and then sharing and reusing workflows across your team and your organization. That's supported by our enterprise products, the KNIME Business Hub Standard and Enterprise. We won't really be talking about those too much today, but of course, if you're interested in that, we have lots of other material we'd be happy to share with you about it. If you've never heard of KNIME before or just aren't that familiar with us, our origin is in the life sciences at the University of Constance in Constance, Germany. Many years ago, our founders who are at the university decided there needed to be an open source tool that could really democratize data science for a wide number of people. So to do that, they built KNIME Analytics Platform. We have supporting it now over 10,000 community built workflows, which are accessible via the KNIME Community Hub. And we also offer lots of training and support. So if you're completely new to KNIME, we have online self-paced courses you can take. We have courses with live instructors. And then the Community Hub is just a tremendous resource of seeing what other people are already doing with the tool. We have more than 3,000 organizations across 40 industries using KNIME, 250,000 plus users around the world. And you can see some of the logos here at the bottom of folks who are using us every day. Having said that, if you're new to KNIME, I want to take a minute to talk nomenclature with you. So you're going to hear us use some of these words a lot, and I want to make sure everybody knows what we mean. When I say node, what is a node? So a node is one of these little colored boxes. You'll see at the top we have a group by node. A node performs an individual task on data, right? That could be reading in data, it could be manipulating it in some way, it could be building out a visualization, it could be writing data or pushing it somewhere else. A node does a single task. The node has what we call ports on it, which are the little arrows you see on either side. Usually those ports have data flowing in and out of the node. And then we also have the little traffic light that you'll see at the bottom here, which indicates the state of the node. Has it been executed? Has it been configured? Was there some problem when you ran it? Was there an error? That will show you that in the traffic light. So those are nodes, and we use individual nodes to build what we call workflows, which are a series of nodes that are going to perform those tasks in series. So you can see in this kind of the second section here, we're reading in some data using the CSV reader. We do some simple filtering operations on it, go downstream, and eventually we create some visualizations, a stacked area chart and a pie chart. This is a pretty simple example of the type of workflow you might build in KNIME. Of course, they can be much more sophisticated and complex, but this is the idea of what a workflow is. And then at the bottom here, you see a component. What's a component? Well, a component is basically made up of different nodes. It encapsulates complexity. So let's say I have a task that I need to do every day. I need to access a database, read in a file, and do some simple data manipulation on that table that I just read in. I can create a component consisting of the nodes that do that. I can reuse that component then in other workflows that I build, and I can share it with other folks on my team or in my organization so they don't have to, reinvent the wheel, right? They can take advantage of the expertise that I've already put into the component. So you'll see us refer to nodes, workflows, and components a lot, and I just wanted to give you an idea of what they are because they're so key when you're looking at these examples we're going to show you to how the software works. This slide here kind of gives you an idea of all the different things KNIME can do. I'm not going to go into all of the details of all these different nodes that we show you because we just don't have time. Today, we're going to focus primarily on what you see on the left-hand side of this example workflow, which is data access and transformation. KNIME's really good at blending in data from multiple sources, whether that's reading in data from a flat file on your machine, or it's accessing tables or multiple tables in a database, or reaching out to cloud resources like an Amazon S3 bucket or something stored in Microsoft SharePoint. You can get data from all those different sources using KNIME and then blend them together and transform the data using these yellow nodes that you see in the middle. So the transformation nodes doing operations that you're probably familiar with already, things like pivoting, concatenating, joining, filtering, that sort of thing. We have nodes for all those sorts of operations. Ultimately, you might want to build a model using KNIME. That's actually one of the things KNIME's really good at. We won't talk about it too much today because our focus is a little different, but we have nodes for different classification models, clustering algorithms, all the way through fairly complex and sophisticated deep learning applications that you can do using these nodes you see in the middle that are green. We have some visualization nodes. We will show you some of these today to help you build out different types of charts, right? Line charts, bar charts, whatever it is you're trying to do. And then ultimately, the last part of the data science lifecycle is deployment. That might take the form of a static report that you create. It might be a model that you're actually putting into production so that you can actually use it live. Or you might be building an interactive data app that someone else on your team can use via their web browser. So lots of different ways we could deploy stuff. But like I said before, we're going to focus primarily kind of on the left-hand side of the functionality of this chart today, because KNIME Analytics Platform version 5 is really catered towards kind of beginner users, and in particular, folks who are coming from maybe a spreadsheet paradigm and coming over to a visual no code, low code platform. So why would you want to use KNIME Analytics Platform version 5? This early access version that we're putting out there, we've done a complete rebuild of the user interface. If you've seen previous versions of KNIME, this will look pretty different, but hopefully a little more streamlined. And the idea behind it is we wanted to put that interface in place that simplifies the whole process of building workflows, not just for yourself, but maybe for other people on your team if you have already used KNIME a little bit. The short version is it's easier now than it ever has been to get started with KNIME using version 5. There's a few slides here that I just will briefly go through that show the interface to give you a little treat or a prelude to what Lisa and Emilio are going to show you in action here. We have something called a starter perspective now. Again, this is the idea that experienced folks with Excel or spreadsheets are going to come into KNIME and they need to be able to build out their workflows quickly. And so instead of the 3,000 nodes that we have available to put in front of someone, which might be a little bit confusing or overwhelming, we're instead putting together a series of targeted nodes that really focus on this kind of ETL blending functionality. That's what the new starter perspective is for. In future versions of version 5, we're going to be releasing other perspectives which focus on different areas that folks may be interested in. But this is our first one. You'll actually see the interface here and its new features in action shortly, so I won't go into detail about all the navigation options, how the new workflow editor works. You're going to see that, but just to kind of whet your appetite a little bit, this is what the new UI actually looks like. And then finally, I wanted to mention, as part of the starter perspective with this, aiming at spreadsheet users, we have added some new nodes that are completely new to KNIME. You'll see a list of them here, and some of these will be demonstrated live when Emilio builds out the workflow for you. Things like the table updater and the value lookup; those are completely new, and hopefully provide not only some additional flexibility in using KNIME, but some simplicity too. So having said that, slides are good, but it's much better to actually show you things in action. So I'd like to bring Lisa on now so that she can show you what the new interface looks like and what new features it has. So Lisa, can you do that for us?
All right. Yes. Thanks, Scott, for giving us this quick intro to KNIME. I would now move on to the KNIME Analytics platform so that I can show you hands-on your way around the version 5 interface, and so that you are actually able to create your own workflow right after this webinar. So the screen that I'll be sharing is the first thing that you will be seeing when you start the KNIME Analytics platform. So this page here, this is called the entry page. And on here, you will find first some example workflows, which you can quick access by just clicking on them. And if you scroll down a bit, you will find your local space. So your local space is basically just a folder on your local machine where KNIME stores all your workflows and files. And if you click on this left panel here, you can actually access those workflows and files. And you can browse through your folders. But what else you can do in here is you could create a new folder. And most importantly, you can also create a new workflow by clicking on this yellow button here. So if you do this, KNIME Analytics Platform will ask you to name your workflow, which we'll just quickly do. Let's just call it my first workflow. And once you hit this create button, this is what you will be seeing. So this entire page here is the KNIME workbench. And here in the middle, you see your workflow editor. So currently this is empty, but you can now start and add nodes to your workflow and add one node after the other, and then step by step create your workflow. So to quickly recall what Scott mentioned earlier is that in KNIME Analytics Platform, a workflow consists of multiple individual nodes that are connected with each other. And if you now we can add or start actually by adding a node to the workflow. And I would suggest, since it's a new workflow, how about we're reading in an Excel file, and I will demo you that. So if you have a look here on the left, you see the side panel navigation. And we're currently here at the middle panel, and this is your node repository. So the node repository, in here, you find all the available nodes in KNIME Analytics Platform, and they are sorted, so to say, by category. So what you can see, you have here some input and output nodes. You have some nodes for manipulation, some view nodes for like charts and plots and stuff, and so on. So if you want to add a node to your workflow, you can do this by a simple drag and drop. So you just grab it and throw it into your workflow, and then this will come up. This means we have now added our Excel reader node to this workflow. Now, also, Scott mentioned earlier that nodes in KNIME have different statuses. So we have not configured, configured, successfully executed, and failed. And if we're looking at this Excel reader node, we can see there is this traffic light underneath the node, and it is red. And red means it's not configured. When you hover over this node with your mouse, then you will also see this node action bar up here, where you have like a few buttons you can click, and one of them, the second from the left, is the execute button. You will notice that when your node is not configured, then you can't click this button here. And what you will also see is underneath the node a little warning message, and you can hover over it and you see the warning message, which then says, okay, please specify file, which makes sense in this case because we want KNIME Analytics Platform to read a file, but we need to tell it, of course, where the file is. So what you can do in this case, you can configure the node by clicking on this first button here on the left. And if you do this, a configuration window comes up. And in here, you need to define the file path. So just need to tell KNIME where the file is located, which I will quickly do and just read in some example data. And once you've done that, you see even a preview of your data table of your Excel file in here at the bottom. And once you click OK, you will notice that the light now switched to yellow. It means the node is now executed. The node is now configured and ready to be executed. And you also notice this button is now available. Once you click it and the node is successfully executed, you see this has a green light here, which is a good sign. You then also see for each node down here is a output preview or the output view. It's actually not the preview, it's like the entire output. So everything that was in the Excel file that we have read in is now down here in this table format. So we have like multiple columns and multiple rows, and we can actually scroll down and scroll to the right and have a look at it in detail. Now, if the execution wouldn't have been successful, you would have gotten an error message. And I will just quickly demo that for you, just that you see how this would look like. So just imagine we have configured our node. It's yellow. We defined the file path. We think it's all good. So we click execute, but then this happens. What does it mean? This means the node execution has failed. And if you hover over it, you will see the reason for it. Here it says, okay, the specified file does not exist, which makes sense because I just entered any file name. So let's just reverse this setting and go back to our Excel file. So now you have the Excel file in here. And what you can now do next is to add more nodes to your workflow, of course. There are several ways how you can do it and how you can search for nodes. And so the first scenario would be, or the best case scenario would be, you know what you want to do and you also know the name of the node. So let's just say we have here our table and we only want to keep 2 of those columns. And we know, okay, there is this column filter node in KNIME. I want to add that node. So if you know it, if you know the name, you can go back to your node repository to the search bar and you just type in the node name, and all the results that are somehow related to this term here are shown below. And luckily, the column filter node is the first node that shows up here. And if you want to add it to your workflow now, just again, drag and drop it into your workflow. Now, the next thing you have to do is you have to connect the Excel reader node here from the output port to the input port of the column filter node. This is, as also Scott said earlier, is because the data basically flows through your workflow from left to right. So what we want to do is this data table we have here, which we read with the Excel reader node, we want to somehow send to this column filter node so that we can filter the data table. And that's why we need this node connection here. Now, second scenario, you want to add a node, but you're not quite sure which one. And there is actually something which is called the quick node adding. And that's actually very cool because you can basically just click on this output port of the of the Excel reader node and place this connection somewhere in your workflow. And then you will see this panel here that gives you up to 12 node recommendation of nodes that are often used in that context. So it basically means many users that use the Excel reader node use one of those nodes afterwards. And we can also see our column filter is one of them. So if we want to add it to the workflow, we just click it. And the good thing is that now this node connection is already there. So we can now also go on and execute or configure this node. And now the third scenario is you want to add a node. You also know what you want to do. So you already know, okay, I want to remove a few columns and I want to keep only 2 columns, but you don't know how the node is called at all. You don't know what to search for. So you can go back to your node repository and search via those tags or keywords here. So in the case of the column filter, we know, okay, data manipulation seems like a good guess. So we can just click on that. And then we see tons of nodes down here that are related to the tag manipulation. We can then further filter or refine our search by clicking more of those tags. For example, in our case, filter would make sense and probably column would make sense. And by having those 3 tags selected, our results are limited to 3 nodes, which is great because the column filter is one of them. If you're still not entirely sure if that's the correct node, you can always click on it and you see the node description here on the right. Then you can read it, and if you see, okay, yep, that's the correct one, you again just throw it into your workflow and again establish this connection here. Another thing you can do here on the left in this side panel is if you click on the first panel, this is the description panel. This gives you the same description that I've just shown you the second before. In the case now, we have the column filter selected, so it shows you the column filter description. If you click on the Excel reader now, then it gives you the description of the Excel reader node. So it explains you in detail what this node is doing. Then another thing you have here on the left is the bottom panel, which is your Space Explorer. So this is basically the same thing that I've shown you on the entry page as well. Here you can access all your workflows and files you have saved. And you also see which of your workflows is currently active, which is denoted by this gray dot you see here. So this is my first workflow we have open here. But you can also just browse through other folders you have here and open any other workflow. And then this will come up. Now, above this node description panel here, you have the workflow toolbar. The nice thing here is that you can, I just zoom out a bit that you see the entire thing. So this is basically this entire workflow. Doesn't matter if you can't read the descriptions or anything, but it's just to show you how a real workflow or a complete workflow would look like. So with the workflow toolbar here, the cool thing is that you can just execute all the nodes at once by just clicking this button. You can cancel workflows or, or cancel the execution, and you can reset all your nodes. Additionally, you can save your workflow up here. You can redo or undo actions. And then one thing which is up here. So as I said earlier, we can have multiple workflows active, so open, so to say. And currently we have this count if and sum if workflow here. But if we want to go back to our first workflow we have created, we can just click on the tab here. So those are basically like your application tabs. And if you want to go back to your entry page or to where we started, you can just click on this home button here. And now we're again in our local space. This is where we have started. This is where we have created our workflow the first time. And if you click on the arrow here, you can go back to your entry page. Now, another thing I want to show to you is here in the top right corner where this eye is. So if you click on it, you can access the info page. And here on the info page, you will find some useful information and links, for example, the one to the KNIME community forum. It's actually great if you have any sort of problem or if you have questions, you can always go to the forum. It's always a good advice to go there and look for an answer or ask for help there. You also have a link to the KNIME Community Hub. So the KNIME Community Hub, this is basically our central place, so to say, where you can find all sorts of workflows, notes, components, extensions, and so on. And the great thing with the KNIME Community Hub is that it's not only the things, the notes and the workflows that we have created, but actually everything the community is sharing with us. So whenever you create your KNIME account, you will have a KNIME Community Hub account, and there you will have two spaces, a private space and a public space. The private space is, of course, just for you, but if you upload things to the public space, then you can share it with the entire KNIME community. And actually, what else you can find here on this info page are you can access some settings here or install in extensions via the info page. And if you click on the X, you're again back at your entry page. And with that being said, I would now like to hand over to Emilio, who is now going to show you how to build a workflow actually from scratch.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. And actually, if you can stay there on stage, because maybe I can ask you another couple of questions more while I build the first workflow with KNIME Analytics Platform version 5 to solve a real life problem. And this problem is actually that I am moving to a new apartment and I have a sheet with basically all the different items that I want to move. And the moving company told me to calculate the total volume that I want to move from my apartment to the new one. And I have all those items. Let's see how I can do this quite simple calculation actually in KNIME Analytics Platform. So for that, as Lisa shown a few minutes ago, I can open KNIME Analytics Platform, the new UI, and then here I see the local space. And the first thing that I could do is to create a workflow in the local space. So I just click on this button here, and I can give the name of my workflow, for example, moving workflow, and click create. And now I'm brought to this page where I have basically an empty workflow. And what I can do is to start populating it with some nodes. Since I have my items in an Excel file, then I can start putting my Excel reader, and I will configure it. The first problem, that's why I have Lisa here to solve this, is that in the configuration, actually, I can select the file in here, but I don't really know where this. I don't really remember the path of this file. What I know is that I can see it here actually because I already put it in my space my Space Explorer. Is there a better way to do this reading a file?
Yes. What you can do in this case is you can just drag and drop your file into the workflow editor, and
so
this will then right like this, and this will then automatically add the Excel reader node with the file path already configured.
Okay, so if I open the configuration, now I see that it's already there, and I can see already even a preview of the file that is going to be read, basically. And this is actually the file with the items and then the amount, etc. Okay, thank you very much, because now if I click like this, then I have my table here. But I have another question for you. So now what I read here is that I have the table, the cupboard, etc., but I don't see all the other items because I think they're saved in another sheet of this Excel file. Is there a way to read different sheets?
Yes, it is. And if you open the configuration window of the Excel Reader node, you will have this select sheet option, and there you can either select it by name or by position.
Okay, so here and then I can select, for example, living room, and I will read another sheet. Okay, perfect. Now I think I can go on. I can go on alone. Those were a couple of doubts that I have, and now let's go on with building finally this workflow. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so I will read the living room data now, and now I have it here. And now I will just create maybe a copy of this Excel reader and configure it to read the kitchen. So I have both the data tables that I want. So I have the first data table of the kitchen and then the second one of the living room. The first thing that I want to do is to kind of put those data tables together, because now they are separated, to put them together into a single table. So to kind of concatenate all those rows into a single table. And for that, Lisa shown that I can go to the node repository and look for a node that does the concatenation, and in this case is the concatenate node. So very simply, I will just drag and drop it, and then provide the two tables that I want to connect. So the first table of the living room and the second table of the kitchen items. So now I click execute, and I can already see that my tables are together. Now I have all the items in one table, the amounts. Let me quickly delete this one because we don't need it anymore. And now from the concatenate node, we can go on, because I can see something that I don't like. And what I don't like is this column here, the nodes column, which has some strings, some missing values. I don't really know what is going on in there. Let's get rid of it. And for that, I need to filter. I need to remove this column. I could, of course, look in the node repository again, or I can use the other tool that Lisa introduced, which is the quick node adding. And the quick node adding, basically, I just have to drag and drop from the output. And here what I get is some advice of which node I could use, so some recommendation. Actually, these recommendations are based on user feedback, and then I can pick something that most probably is going to help me in what I want to do. And in this case, actually, I can already see that there is the column filter, which I can click on, and it will get added to the workflow. So now I have my data. They get brought to the column filter, and let's see the configuration window to see how I can get rid of a column. In this case, the configuration window is pretty simple. I have the columns included. Now they are all included. Since I want to exclude the nodes column, I just have to click and bring it back to excludes. And now if I click OK, execute and watch down, I have items and amount. Perfect. That's what I was looking for. Actually, with this data, we can already kind of plot something. I think it's time to enhance our workflow with some visualization. For example, let's say that I want to create a bar chart that shows the different items and then how many of that items are present in this list. For that, I can go again to the node repository under views. There are a few view nodes, and what I will add is a bar chart next to the column filter, connected, and configure. Now, the configuration window of the bar chart or of any other view node that you will find here is a little bit different because you have all the options on the right side, and then you have a preview in the middle. If I now click Save and Execute, this is very, very cool in this version of these nodes, that you will see already the preview of the view that is being produced by this node. And actually, this is something that we will have to fix in the options, because this is not what I want to. This is not the correct view because, for example, I want to, so the category dimension is okay, what I expected. So I have the different items in here, but I want to aggregate by sum, and the sum will be done on the amount column. So all the amount will be summed together. I can click again, save and execute, and now I see the bar chart as I wished. Also, if you have many other options that you can configure with which you can configure your plot. For example, you can set a title like number of items. And as you see, like some options, as soon as you change them, they already reflect on the view. So that's very cool. Now clicking OK, we have configured, it's already executed. If I just want to see the view produced by this node, then I can click on this, I can make it a little bit bigger. Then I can click on this magnifier in here, and this will open another window with only the bar chart that is produced by this node. And here I can see I can even hover over it, and then I can see the related value of that. Okay, but that was not our final goal of today's problem, because we still have to produce the total volume of those items. Now we just have a table with item and amount, but what we want to do is to calculate the volume of those items too, so that my moving company can give me an estimate of the cost. So for that, I need some more data that I can retrieve in the node in the Space Explorer. Those data are saved in the items volume Excel file. Again, drag and drop, execute, and it is already there. And let's see what this Excel file has. I have a column with item names, item volumes, and then I have a weird other column which is all full of empty, full of missing values. And then I have this value here, this 1.0, which actually probably must be belongs to this column. So the people who filled this Excel file didn't do a great job. But let's try to fix it with just some node. And the node that we want to use is the column merger. This node is also is one of the new additions of the KNIME Analytics Platform version 5. And let's look for it with the name, column merger here. And if I click on it, I can see the quick description of the node with this column merges to column into one by choosing the cell that is non-missing. So exactly what we want to do with those two columns. Let's bring it there, connect it to the table that we want to modify, and then I click the cog button to see the configuration window. In here, we have to select the primary column, which in this case is going to be item volume, and then a secondary column, which is going to be the one with just one value. And then we have to select a replace strategy, which in this case, we're going to just replace the primary and delete the secondary column. How do I know about all those options? Well, I just don't know. I just read the documentation. But if you have some doubts while configuring a node, one thing that really helps you is to use those question marks here, which bring a tooltip where you can read more information about the configuration. So for example, the secondary column, you're like, what is a secondary column? I don't know. Then you just click there and you see that it's the column with the value that will be used if it is missing in the primary column. So keep it in mind because it really, really helps, and it's present in every configuration option of the nodes. So if you click now OK and execute, this is what we wanted, just the item name and the item volume without this other weird column. So we are getting there. But I see already another problem, which is that now the item column is stored as a string. This is another problem of who filled this Excel file, but we can also fix it with another node because actually the item volume is stored as a string, but we want it to be stored as a number because it has double values. I don't actually remember the name of the column to do the conversion, but we can figure it out by doing some search. So first of all, it's of course a manipulation node, so I can already filter by this tag, And then probably it's going to be a convert and replace, since we want to convert a column. So let me click it. And actually, this is the node that we wanted, string to number. And this node converts a string in a column to numbers. Very simply what we wanted to do. So let's quickly add it and connect it here. So since this node can convert multiple columns, we just have to select the one that we want to convert to numbers and exclude the item name, because this actually contains a string, so we want it to keep it as a string. So only the item volume will be converted to number format, to actually double format. Now if I click OK, execute, and I have my nice table with just the item name and the item volume as a double, stored as a double. Okay, so where are we now? We have this table here with the name and the volume, and then the other table here with the items and the amount. We want to actually put all those information together again. So the information of the amount and the information of the item volume, but this time we don't want to concatenate the rows, but we want to put them one, let's say side by side. So kind of matching the item volume for the table with the amount of tables that I have. And for that, I can use another node, which is the value lookup. This is also one of the newly added nodes of this new version. And let me add it here. And this node has, again, two input ports. In the first one, we connect the data table. And in the second one, we connect what is called the dictionary table, because it will be used as a dictionary to do the match. And in this case, I will have to select a matching strategy. So which column I want to match. In this case, I have the same value in the item column of the first table and in the item name of the dictionary table. Once the two columns are matched, so once the node finds a match of the first in the second table, then I can include some of the columns of the second table. In this case, the one that I want to include is the item volume. So let's again remove the item name from this list. And now clicking OK and executing, I have the table as I wished. So I have the item, I have the amount, and I have the volume for each of those items. The very last thing that is left to do is to do some aggregation. Because now, if you remember, this table can contain some duplicates. For example, I have the chair here and also the chair in here, just because they come from two different files. So I've put them together. They come from different rooms, actually, of my house. I put them together, so that's why they're duplicate. Let's aggregate those together using a row aggregation. And while aggregating those values, what we also want to do is to calculate the actual total volume that those items bring. So for that, let me look for a row aggregator in here, and let me add it to the workflow like this. And the row aggregator is relatively simple to configure. I just have to select a category column, on which I'm going to do the aggregation. In this case, the item. So I'm going to have a single item after the row aggregator. I'm going to have a single item in each row. The aggregation is going to be sum. And what do I want to sum? I want to sum the item volumes. So I want to calculate the total volumes for each item. And the cool thing about the row aggregator is that I can also specify a weight column, which in this case is the amount. So I'm going to have the item volume multiplied by the amount and then sum together. I click OK, I execute, and now I have single values. So I just have one entry chair, for example, and I have the total item volumes for each item. The very, very last thing that is left to do now is to actually sum them up all together to have the total volume of items that I'm gonna move. And for that, I actually can just go again in the row aggregator and select this checkbox down here, which calculates the grand totals as the second output port, which outputs the grand totals in the second output port. What does it mean? Let's see it together. I select it, execute it again. And now what I have is the first output port. This was as before, but now also the second output port is available. And I can check the output of this port by clicking here on the 2, basically. And in here, I can see the second table output by this node, which has finally the total amount of items that I'm gonna move, which is 8.6. Okay, that was it for my real life problem. And now I would call Scott and Lisa together on stage for the final part of this webinar.
Great. Thanks very much to both of you for showing us not only how the interface works, but how we can practically build out a workflow using KNIME version 5. Before we wrap up today and get to our questions, I just wanted to summarize a little bit. I've got a slide here that you can see that shows many other things that KNIME can do. So we've showed you a lot about blending data, right? Manipulating that data and creating some visualizations, but that really just scratches the surface of what you can do with KNIME. I mentioned before the different data sources that you could blend together. If you need to build models in the cloud using big data resources, we have a whole set of nodes around that you see at the top of this slide. You can access Databricks, Snowflake, AWS, and Azure resources pretty easily using KNIME. If you want to do a little bit different reporting and visualization than what we have available, we showed you some of those nodes already, but let's say your company already uses Tableau, you already use Power BI to do the visualizations, and that's what you prefer. That's okay too. We have nodes that allow you to export the data that you've manipulated in KNIME to those other platforms to be able to do the visualization there. So it's really up to you how you want to do that, whether you want to use our native nodes or use an external tool. And then lastly, at the bottom, if you're getting into data science and you think, man, I sure would like to be able to include some scripting in my workflow, including maybe R or Python portions of scripts, or if you'd like to even build out a neural network, a deep learning network using Keras and TensorFlow, we have nodes that support that too. So there's a lot of really sophisticated AI capability or ML capabilities available in KNIME that we don't have time to get into today, but just wanted you to know that that's there when you get to that point in your data science journey. So big question today, and I think this has already come up in chat a few times. How do you get started with version 5? You can download the early access link. I believe Christiana has already posted that in the comments, but you will also have other links available at the end that you can actually click on, unlike this slide, to be able to get version 5. Note that it is early access. We'll talk about that a little bit. It doesn't contain all of the features yet that you might expect KNIME to have. Those will be coming in the summer, but we've released it now so that you can start playing with it, and so you can provide us with feedback so we can improve it even further. If you want to get started with version 5, go ahead and check out the Getting Started guide that we've written. It goes step by step through building a workflow, similarly to what Emilio just showed you, so that you can actually get some hands-on experience using the new KNIME if you haven't before. We also have a cheat sheet available that you can download. Oftentimes it's really nice to have that cheat sheet right next to you as you're building out a workflow, so you can help think through what common nodes are for particular tasks, what some use cases might be that you could follow along with. That sort of stuff is going to be included in our cheat sheet, which is a PDF you can just get. And then, of course, I'll mention again the KNIME Community Hub, which has many thousands of ready-made workflows for you to try out for different use cases. Those come with data. Download, start executing, and then make those workflows your own, right? You can start bringing your own data in and updating them for what it is that you're trying to do. One last thing I'll mention before we get to the questions is the KNIME Spring Summit. So this is coming up imminently in just a few weeks. It's going to be a hybrid event on-site in Berlin, Germany, and also online April 17th through 19th. You can register at this link. We'll put that in the chat too. What can you expect at a KNIME Summit? So for the on-site people, we'll have training available. It's multi-level training that's taught live by our data scientists on our KNIME evangelism team. But there's also lots of demo booths you can check out from our partners. There's different keynotes and user talks. We'll have talks from our development team to show you the latest advances in the software, and you'll also see talks from folks who are using KNIME every day, how they use it at their company and the cool things they're doing. There's also some opportunities for you to network and break out into different groups. If you're not able to come to Berlin and attend live, we will have a free virtual summit pass that you can register for, and that won't get you access to the training, but you will be able to sit in on some of the keynotes and workshops and presentations and see what's going on with the wider community. So please do join us for the KNIME Spring Summit coming up in a few weeks. here's just an example of some of our speakers that have already confirmed, along with some of the companies that'll be presenting there, like Siemens, Bosch, ZF, and some others. Okay, now it is time for Q&A. Our folks have been diligently collecting your questions. Before I start answering some of them with the help of Lisa and Emilio, I do want to point out that we almost certainly won't have enough time to address all of these. We'll do our best. But if we don't get to your question, check out the link on the forum. So we're going to have a topic dedicated to this webinar on the KNIME forum, where we'll try to make sure that we address all those questions for you. So having said that, let me scroll over here and see what's a good one to start with. Oh, I did want to mention the results of our poll. I forgot about that earlier. Christiana took a poll about how long you've been using KNIME. So we had 3 categories. 24% of you said never. 28% of you are relatively new to KNIME, up to a year. And then 48% of you have been using KNIME for a year or longer. So thanks for letting us know. It's interesting to have that distribution. We never know who's going to come to some of these webinars, so it's good to have that information. Okay, let's answer some questions. I think the first one here I will pose to Emilio. Is it possible to install version 5 parallel to an older version of KNIME, like 4.7?
Yes, of course. And so basically, yeah, the short answer is just yes. And just what I would recommend you to do is to just basically install them into different locations using 2 different workspaces. Yeah. That's best practice to not make them conflict.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let me ask Lisa this question. So I mentioned this is early access release version 5, right? When is version 5 getting released officially?
So this is planned for summer, actually.
Okay.
Short answer here.
Okay. Let me ask Lisa also this question then. Does this version that we're using today have annotations? Because someone was using KNIME and saw it in 4.7, but they didn't see how to do it in early access version 5.
Not yet, because as we said, it's still the early access. What you can do already, I haven't showed it actually. You can put comments underneath your notes, like you know it from the 4.7, if you know the 4.7. So you can document your workflow already. The annotations, not yet, but.
Yeah. But that's coming in the summer release, right? We're planning for that.
Yes. Okay. Working on it.
Great. Let me scroll down here and see a little bit. Is there an option, I'll ask Emilio, to switch back to the classical view? And basically, can I go back and forth between the new UI in version 5 and the older version 4?
Yes, very, very, very nice question. Yes, you can, of course. So from version 5, if you go to the info button, which is on the top right part of your of the application, then from there you have the options like to connect to the forum, to connect to the KNIME Hub, etc. And you also have the option to switch back to the old UI. So yes.
Okay. Great. And we would, encourage folks definitely to try that. And, we hope you prefer the newer interface, of course, but if,
yes,
if you need to switch back for accessibility reasons while you're getting adjusted, you can do that. We have a question here about the SDK and development. So someone is asking basically, how does this release of version 5 affect the SDK? Could there be a compatibility problem with this new version, going back with the basic, what they're calling the basic tool and the community nodes? And I guess what we would suggest there is, if you are doing node development and you're wondering how that's going to interact with version 5, come post on the forum. We have a node development category there that you can ask specific questions. We're in the process of testing out a community and partner extensions for full compatibility in the next release, in the summer release. So that is in progress, I guess I would say, is the answer to that question. But if you're running into any headaches on stuff that you have developed yourself, please come let us know so we can work through that with you. Let's see. Does the current version of KNIME support the community nodes from 4.7 like the scripting nodes? Yeah, that's kind of a similar question to the other one. that's coming, right? So we released this early access version, I mean, primarily to get your feedback on the UI and the look and feel, but right now there are some extensions that aren't available in the early access version, but that will change soon. So don't fret if you're trying to do something specific. You say, I can't find these notes. That's coming. It'll be in the next release, most likely. Let's see. We have time, I think, for a few more. Let me look at the list here. Here's a question. Is KNIME 5.0 still based on Java? And does that mean Java scripting nodes are faster to execute than Python nodes for equivalent tasks? So that's a pretty technical one. Yes, Analytics Platform version 5 is still based on Java on the back end, but the front end is still fully JavaScript based. So we added last year the ability to write Python nodes directly with KNIME, and that capability is still going to be in there. We also added some backend improvements to make the data transfer from and to Python nodes much faster. As to which will be faster, what the Java approach or the Python approach, I think it depends on what you're doing, right? If you run into some case where you benchmark one against the other and you see a big wide discrepancy, I think we'd be interested in hearing about that. So you could let us know maybe on the forum if you run into something along those lines. Okay, maybe we can finish up with this one. What is your favorite new feature in version 5? I can answer for myself, and then maybe Lisa and Emilio have something as well. My favorite feature is the ability to, when you drag a connection for a node to kind of a blank space, it makes that suggestion for you right away. So you get a box, I think it is, or 8 or 12 nodes that tell you right away, here's ones you could use, so that you don't have to go back over and drag them out of the node repository. The common ones are presented to you right there. So I think that's a nice quality of life improvement. Did either of you have something that jumped out at you as a favorite feature for 5?
I have the table preview in the bottom, which is, I mean, it was present before, of course, you had the node monitor before, but I really like it now. Once you get, because before I was, of course, used to, like, for the ones of you who have used the previous UI, you could just right click and then open in a new window, etc. And you always end up with all those windows opened here and there. And now if you just click on a node, you have this short and tidy output of the node right there at just one, like you just have to move your eyes and you have it there. And I find it super practical actually to enhance the visuality of the workflow.
That's a good. Lisa, did you have one?
Yeah, for me it's actually the, let's say, the new view nodes, or the improvement there in the configuration window, that what Emilio showed earlier, that if you configure let's say a bar chart, and you can, from the configuration window, you can already see the plot. So you can execute a node from inside the configuration window, if that makes sense. I like it because you can really, you see, if you make changes, you don't have to like execute it, make another click and have a look at the plot itself, but you can really see it, just, let's say, as a live update, so to say.
Yeah.
Nice
Big
one.
fan of
Maybe I
that.
changed my answer to that.
Well, good. Well, I think we're probably out of time for today, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I wanted to thank everybody for attending, and thanks especially to Lisa and Emilio for showing us how all of this works. For those of you we weren't able to answer your questions live, I apologize, but as I mentioned, we will be answering those on the forum. So please do come onto the forum and check it out to get full responses to those questions. We welcome your feedback, both what you like and what you don't like, and we are definitely going to take that into account in future development for the software. So on behalf of Lisa, Emilio, and everybody at KNIME, thanks again for coming. We'll see you hopefully at another webinar or event soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.